Hi, and welcome back to the Talk of Success podcast. My name is Dr. Jackeline Mejias-Fuertes, and I am your host. And Talk of Success is a podcast that was put together by the NJSBDC at Brookdale Community College. And the purpose of this podcast is to assist entrepreneurs and small business owners with insight and empowerment, motivation, and information as to how they can continue on their path to success. And as we always say on this podcast, success is an individual thing. So my job as the host is always to bring to you some amazing guests. I've had the privilege as the SBDC director at the Small Business Development Center at Brookdale Community College to come in contact with the most amazing, inspiring individuals who happen to be entrepreneurs, just like me. But in meeting them, I've also been able to follow quite a few of them. And today, our guest is an individual that, wow, I actually help assist, as she put it, born her business. So to me, that's an amazing thing. And our guest today is Lynnae Lopez of Verve. Verve. I still crucified it. I apologize for that, Lynn.
That's okay.
But with our Talk of Success, it's really to inspire you, our listeners, and our viewers with what was their path? How did they get there? What did they come across? What were their obstacles? But even with all that, they managed to keep on moving forward. And in doing so, they've learned some valuable lessons, which I feel are important to share with you, our audience. So, our focus is definitely to have a conversation, and that is what's going to occur with Lynn and myself today. And it's really to help you have some takeaways. So from this, at the end of the podcast, we always have a Did You Know section, which is all about the resources that are available to you, the small business owner, the entrepreneur. Just in case you weren't aware of them, these are some resources that can benefit you on your path to success in developing your business, small business, or even your side hustle, which is something that everyone alludes to now, having at least a side hustle. So with that, I don't want to talk anymore because my joy is always listening to our guests talk about how they were able to achieve their level of success and what they classified as success, because once again, success is a very personal thing. It's not just about reaching a certain number. It's not just about achieving a certain goal. Success, again, a very individual thing. So with that, today we have Lynnae Lopez, who has more than 25 years in the field and is passionate about early childhood, which during the pandemic, I learned a lot about early childhood and the importance it is to our economy. So her extensive skills led her to the administrative and leadership role that she currently has now within her business. She's built an amazing team, and in doing so, the approach in it was in making sure that they met well, they have a national presence, and that they had high quality standards when it came to early childhood. So with that, I want to introduce to you Lynnae. Thank you for being on our podcast. I am so happy and grateful that you agreed to be on the show with us today. And it really is about you. For us, I want them to know more about you. So why don't you tell them a little bit more about your business?
Sure. So my business was born almost 9 years ago, back in 2013. And honestly, it was born through a series of unfortunate events, as I would say, right? Mm-hmm. I was in the field for first as a teacher. And then I moved into administration, where I was an early childhood director leading grant-funded, state-funded programs. Okay. So here in New Jersey, those would be Abbott districts, right? And I learned a lot there. And part of that was I learned what it takes to actually run a high-quality program, and what that actually means, and what state guidelines are around that. But back to 2013, I was in an early childhood program that was about to close.
Okay.
And my administration had come to me at the beginning of that year and had told me, and they hadn't yet told the staff, but their closing goals, and this is part of the downside of business, right? When you have to close down something, was the first person they were going to let go was me. Because I was,
management.
Yes. They were bringing a closing team in, and they had a process there. So I actually ended up leaving corporate in 2013. And at the same time this was happening, my mother was very sick. And so although I had a lot of sadness about what was happening, because I had built a team for 5 years, and I felt a little bit like I was abandoning them. It was an opportunity for me at that time to spend more time with my mom. So, the family role was super important. But during that time, that in between, the company that had let me go actually called me back and said, hey, listen, we have some people that still want to work with you.
Interesting, huh? How good am I? No, go ahead.
Exactly.
You're calling me back.
Yeah, hey, and I kind of said, hey, I don't work for you anymore. So we did a subcontracting a deal, and I was able to. That was my first real step into having control, I would say, in what I wanted my work experience to be. And in those months that I did that, I just learned the joy. Some of the things when you're in corporate, you get into a certain field because you want to work in that field and you have joy and you have skill sets, but there's always a downside. There's always those things you don't want to do. Right?
So true, so true.
Like I don't want to do P&Ls. I don't want to do performance appraisals, I don't want. So what I learned in those couple of months when I was in subcontracting work is I got to choose what I wanted to do. I got to choose when I wanted to work. I got to set my price point. And I had a lot of freedom there. I was raising young children at the time, and also I wanted to spend more time with my mom. So it was this beautiful, it was born out of sadness, but also it bore something even more beautiful than I could have imagined.
Accident.
Yes.
If you look at it, I'm just sitting here and I'm going, what would I call that? Because it's not an obstacle, but a lovely accident.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's how businesses are born.
Yeah.
It's a lovely, at the time you don't think it's lovely. I have to say, when you're looking at it, you're like, I don't know, but hindsight shows us that, I always say everything happens for a reason, whether we understand it or not. And to me, I'm listening to you and I'm going, that was a lovely accident.
It was, and it was, so fast forward a few months, I had now met some other entrepreneurs that were doing the same type of work I was doing, and I was learning what being an entrepreneur actually meant. One of them was how to manage the pay system, right? Because how you're paid in the corporate world, whole lot different than the entrepreneur world, right?
Yeah, getting that check on a, what is it, timely basis, whether it's the 15th or the 30th or the 1st and the 15th, it's coming, or even on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
But when you're on your own.
Yes. So that was an adjustment. But I had some conversations with some people, and they said to me, do you have business insurance? And I thought, I need business insurance. And so then,
it doesn't matter what you do. Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't have business. What do I need to do? So that kind of led me to start doing some research, and a couple of really close friends of mine who at the time had small businesses locally where I live had said, check out the Small Business Development Center. They have some great programs there. Maybe you should just go and take a couple classes. And I was like, I think I should. I think I should take a couple classes. So that's actually how I met you.
Yes.
That's how we met. And I took the first class, the business intro.
Business startup.
Which was amazing. Yeah. It goes through everything you need to know, right? It lined it up. So I got a lot of information there.
And we still have that course, and no, I did not pay her to say that.
And you led the class then.
Yes, I did, and I still do.
Yeah.
And it has been edited to meet up to the time. So
yeah. But one of the things, there was a couple key points in that class that I distinctly remember. And the first thing that you told me, and this is a part of how I became what I define as successful, is hire people to do the accounting, unless you're an accountant. Right. Really, there's certain things you'll do on your own, and there's certain things you're going to bring a team on for, and make sure the accounting piece is tight. That you have people that know numbers and they can teach you, and you have a system and QuickBooks and all that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to her on that.
And I'm happy to say great advice. It still stands.
Yes, and it was great advice.
If it's not your thing, you need to know what goes on in your financials.
Yeah.
But if you can outsource it, you want to outsource that ASAP, because if you don't know financially what's going on in your business, that will be a problem.
It's true. And also just running reports. And that I'll talk about that a little later, about how the business was impacted by COVID, and how that actually came huge into play, that I had been doing that for so long.
That's fantastic.
But the other thing that came out of that was you asked us to define our success, which I saw you lead with at the beginning in the opening here. And I remember sitting in the class and I was like, okay, success for me is making enough money to pay my bills right now. Right?
And our success could change from year to year. Hey, I want to say sometimes month to month.
Yeah. So that was my first, is like, I need to make enough money to live and not feel deficient. And the other part for me was really to have flexibility with my time. Because as I had mentioned, I had young kids then 9 years ago. My kids now are 22, 19, and 15.
Wow.
So just subtract 9 years off of all that. So they were very young. And at the time, I was also going through a divorce. So there was a lot of things in my life that had been consistent that now were not. And I had to kind of recreate myself and recreate a lot of, really get to rebirth what I wanted my life to look like.
I love that word, rebirth.
Yeah.
We used it earlier. I used it because I really did take it off Lynnae. I'm not such a wordsmith, but rebirth. I really like that whole thing about rebirthing yourself, your business, the whole thing. So I love that word. I'm putting it down because it's one of the words I want.
So, yes, I took some classes with you and learned a lot, and then I got to work, right? I got to work after, like, what's my name going to be? I had to get a bank account. I had to, I had to do the P.O. box. I had, a lot of these background things that I had to get in place. And I did all of that. And actually, you were the one that helped me register the business. Right. We registered it together in your office over at Brookdale. And which was a great day. I celebrate that day every day. Every year, every day too, but every year. But ironically, or maybe not ironically, a week later, I had my first contract. I had someone reach out to me that I had been working with in the subcontracting field, and was interested in a project that they really only wanted me to lead. And I had said to them, "It sounds great, but I now own a business." So the business, it would have to be under contract. And they said, great, just send the paperwork. And I signed a $20,000 contract within a week of opening my business.
How wonderful is that? Look how good we are at the SPC.
Yes. Yes. So it was.
But it goes beyond that, because, that whole piece, the contacts that you had before you went into business, developing those crucial partnerships and relationships that, you were an amazing worker before. Now you're an amazing, I want to say boss lady.
Yes.
So, that to me is huge, because you did step in and say, at this point you had so many changes going on in your life that, this is, sometimes I feel we're guided a certain way. It's never a straight line. Did you at any point prior to that think you would be owning your own business?
No.
I did not. That was not within your sights?
Not really. And it's funny because when I was in my mid-30s, so this happened, I was right around 40, and I'd say I was maybe 33, and my mom had said to me just randomly one day, is like, yeah, you should just have your own business. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I'm raising young kids. I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So it's funny because, no, it wasn't a thought. It was a thought of my mother's. She saw it.
Know best.
She saw it way before I saw it. But no, not really. And, a lot of people have asked me that, like, how did you do that? And I said, really? There was an opportunity and I just jumped in without fear. And I trusted myself that what I didn't know, I would figure out, which has kind of been my motto through my business, or find people that did.
That's it.
Yeah.
I love that. Jump in without fear. Think
Yeah.
about it. As an entrepreneur, as a small business owners, are you holding yourself back instead of jumping right in because you fear what the consequences may be? And my thing behind fear is just an opportunity to learn something.
Yeah.
You just don't know it yet. And even if you do it wrong, you'll go back and do it again until you get it right. It's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
So I love that, that you found an opportunity, which is what we talk about as an entrepreneur and a small business owners. Those that are successful saw an opportunity and took advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I am just, that's pretty amazing to me. Now, along with opportunities, and the fear of just jumping in and not worrying, which is a true definition of an entrepreneur. You jump in, kind of going with blinders, and you're like, we'll see what happens. But there had to be some sacrifices along the way.
Yeah.
So what would you say those sacrifices were? Because to me, anything worthwhile doesn't come, just, it's not handed to you and it's not always pretty.
Yeah.
There's some sacrifices that come along with that. What would you say
Well,
yours
I would
were?
say even though in the very beginning, the time freedom was something that was driving me, when you're building a business, there's a lot of time.
I love freedom, but I don't know, especially in the first 3 years, I pick up my eyes because I'm like, I don't know about that in the first 3 years, unless you figured something that I'm not aware of and you can share.
Yeah.
I figure so.
I think, when you're in the corporate world, for the most part, you're in like this 9 to 5, weekends off, holidays off. I mean, if you have that kind of a job, and I did because I was in schools. So I had summers off, right? But building a business, there's always something to do. And so I would say the first part was learning how to set boundaries around my time because I felt like I was always working. I was always doing something. So learning how to have a balance, I think, in the beginning. But, the one thing I will say is, and my kids, if they were here, would say, I remember when my mom was only in pajamas and a ponytail most of the day, not because of depression or anything like that, because I was just in front of my computer working intensely.
Time to change.
Yes.
I get it.
Working intensely, especially when I started the grant writing, which is a part of what I do, is the grant writing was a good couple of weeks where I had to fall back on friends to say, hey, can you take my kids out to the park today? Because I'm still working on. So, it was, I would say, even though now I'm in a place where I have what I initially defined as success and a lot more, I would say now. I could add to that definition of success I had in the classroom with you that first year in the summer of 2013. But it did take a little bit of intensity and focus that I probably at the time didn't realize that it would have taken. But it was all good along the way, though. It wasn't something that I would describe as like, negative or something like that. It was just unforeseen.
Definitely unforeseen.
Unforeseen what it would take to build, just because there's always something to do.
Absolutely. I always say it in class that it's like you have all 4 burners going on at the same time and you're trying to adjust everything as you can. Because being a mom, and at that time a young mom with young kids, and thank you. I do have 2 children, adult children now, and I remember when I had my own business, that I did it specifically so I could be there for them, and then yet I could not be there 100% for them. That never happened, and grateful. At the time I did have a spouse that was supportive. And, my kids understood, they knew mom would always be there. She'll be there late.
Yeah.
So they were like, no, we're waiting for mom. She'll be here in about another 5 or 10 minutes. She's always late. And anyone that knows me probably says, so that's what you get for, look, part of my life. I tell people, give it to me 15 minutes earlier and I'll be there on time. So it's just, but I can relate to that when, the whole thing about freedom, thinking you're going to have more freedom when you're running your business than when you're actually doing it. And boy, with me came lack of sleep with that one because, it was like, well, if I go to the soccer game now, then that means I have to stay up to, 3 a.m. to finish the project so it could be out on time, which I did plenty of times.
Yes, plenty of early. I was better at getting up super early than staying up super late.
Yeah.
That was my...
Nah, for me, I'm a night owl, so that's why I'm always late when it comes to the morning. But give me something in the evening, we're good.
Yeah.
12, no problem. 3, I'm thriving 3 a.m. It's 8 in the morning where I'm like, oh gosh, we're having a meeting. Right. So along with that, I know that as entrepreneurs, what mistakes have given you the most significant lessons? Because again, we talked about fear, and we said, to me, fear is an opportunity to learn something. But what mistakes actually helped you get to a different level, or that you actually, gathered this information from it, a lesson that you're like, wow, I'm happy that happened.
Yeah.
So what do you think that would be?
Mistakes.
Yeah, mistakes. Because we all have them.
Yeah.
I'm like, it could be from hiring the wrong person to,
Yeah. I would say part of, I don't know if it was a mistake. I think it was just an oversight, is I haven't really, when I jumped in and I kept going. And I learned about 4 years into the business, I was always in forward motion. And I started to feel the effects of that, right? Like tired, low energy, maybe more anxiety maybe would be a good, like kind of like, because when you're, just think about it, like when you're always on like go, like your body doesn't have time to rest, your body doesn't have time, your mind doesn't have time to reflect. So I think at about 4 years in, I started just to connect with the fact that it was okay to slow down. It was okay to stop. And ultimately, it was okay to reflect. And I think that I had up to that point, because I am a go-getter and I'm a very focused and goal-oriented person.
I call that achievers.
Yeah.
That's us. We're a bunch of achievers.
And I think when you're programmed like that, stopping and reflecting doesn't feel like it fits the narrative, right? It feels like, what? You're not doing anything today?
It's like full steam or dead.
Yes.
That's what I call it. That, you have a continuum, but for me, it's always been full steam or dead.
Yeah.
Learning that, because I totally relate to exactly what you're saying, because I went through something similar when I had my own business.
Yeah.
To the point that, it affected me physically and knocked me out for a few weeks. And I promised myself then that I would never let that happen again. And that I had to listen to my body.
Yeah.
And that when my body said enough is enough, it's okay if you want to sit on that sofa and veg for a day or half a day or 3 hours, that you're allowed to do that. So, I even do it now, and my daughter goes, really? You're in front of the TV? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not really watching it. I'm just kind of just letting it just, filter on in, because I'm done.
Yeah.
And coming into the age that I am, and I'm embracing this age full-heartedly, which is 60, right? Is that I'm allowed to do this.
Yeah.
And I tell, people now, I'm 60, even though I'm not there yet. I go, I'm 60, I'm allowed.
Yeah.
So, and it's just that. But that's pretty amazing and insightful that, was it a mistake? Or, but it did provide a significant lesson.
It did.
And I wish I had learned it years earlier.
Yeah.
Because to me,
as well,
that's pretty daunting, knowing that. And I say that in class now. I know Lynnae's a Reiki master and does the whole thing. And I believe in holistic services and how to take care of yourself holistically. And it's simply because of that. I had to learn how to meditate. I had to learn, do yoga. It wasn't about, beating that pavement all the time. Sometimes I had to. but it wasn't. It was more about,
Yeah. And I think and there's lots of lessons wrapped up in that, right? There's the immediate lesson of you can give yourself permission to take a break. But there's also another side of that where if you're not giving yourself space to sit in stillness, then you're never going to be clear about where you're going. And what you want to do and how to get there, because your mind is always just trying to solve the problem that's directly in front of you.
Yes.
So yeah, I would say that was a lesson I had to learn that I didn't have when I started. And, I also realized that the teams that I was leading were not reflecting and taking a rest either. That we had to relook at some of the things and some of the culture that we had created. Because we were a team that was building something, that we wrote a grant and we were building programs. So we were stepping into that type of momentum, but kind of forgot that we would be much better suited if we also had the yin and the yang, right? Had the balance of being able to stop, sit, reflect, celebrate. Celebrate, right? What you've accomplished, where you've come, where you've been, and where you're going. So that was big.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to you, and I always ask, what are 3 action items that you would recommend and why? But as we're talking, I'm like, well, that's pretty much 2. Give yourself the permission to stop and reflect, but also when it comes to organizational culture, the culture of your organization, how important it is to allow your team to do that as well. Because, I learned that through the pandemic, that my team was amazing at the NJSBDC at Brookdale Community College, and the output that we did, at least within the first year and a half of the pandemic, was outstanding.
Yeah.
Towards that second, the end, we're still in the pandemic somewhat, but as we're moving through the pandemic, I realized that my team and I were totally burning out. We work for an amazing institution, which is Brookdale Community College, and our president, Dr. Davis Stout, he made it a point to make sure that mentally and and that we were mentally healthy as well as physically healthy. Yeah. And by listening to him, I gave myself permission to step back, which allowed me to give permission to my team also to step back. Usually we have this amazing event at the Stone Pony called Women Entrepreneurs Rock, and we had to postpone it because we were going on empty. We were on fumes.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned that I looked at my team, and the moment I said, look, this is all on me. This is not a reflection on you, but we can't do this. I said, I just don't have the capacity at this time to extend and put out what this requires in order to be a successful event. The look on their face was the best look ever, because it was the side of relief. And I was like, why didn't you say something? You guys know I listen. And they would just, and someone pointed out, they did not want to disappoint you as the team leader.
Yeah.
So I always say, I'm blessed with the team that I have. Yeah. So like I said, team and celebrating your accomplishment. Yeah. What would be the third action item that you would recommend to our listeners as entrepreneurs and business owners, that they could take this away and, why?
I think trust yourself.
Wow, I love that. Trust yourself.
I think it took settle into that. It's not that I didn't trust myself along the way, but I would make myself go through this like dialogue with myself. What are you really going to do that? What are you going to do? And what's it going to look like? And I would spend a lot of time on that, and I would eventually get to the point where I'd be like, okay, yes, go. But I think now I could have alleviated a lot of that if I just trusted myself and my intuition and, going with your heart on things. If it doesn't feel right, spend a little more time on it. But if it does feel right, go for it.
Absolutely. Trust your heart, I have to say. For those of you that don't know, I'm really into my faith. And And I was reading the Bible this morning, and what came out was trust your heart. It was the verse on trust your heart. So
See
this
that?
is so apropos that it is that, it's not what we think so much, but if you
Yeah.
trust your heart
Yeah.
and you do the right thing regarding your heart, everything will work out for you. So
Yes.
I just had to mention that because it was just appropriate at this time, I think. So as we keep on moving forward, now we're getting into our Did You Know section. So I am so honored that Lynnae came out to talk with us today. And we are both going to talk about some resources, but I'm really grateful and in gratitude of Lynnae being here with us and sharing her success and reminder of what those 3 action items were. One is to give yourself permission, yourself and your team permission, to step back, reflect, take a moment. This all ties into keeping yourself healthy mentally and physically, and then also celebrating your accomplishments. We're on that, I think, I want to go Ferris wheel, or what is it, hamster wheel rather, not a Ferris wheel, but the hamster wheel, where, where you do some great things and then you're like, yeah, that was yesterday, you got to keep on going with something else. But take the time, on a daily basis, tell yourself, wow, we were amazing yesterday, or my team and I, or even if it's yourself, I was able to accomplish this, I was able to help a customer. Think about it, celebrate that, because that is what's going to sometimes fuel you to be able to move forward and come up with some amazing programs. And then I love the last one, trust yourself, your intuition. I think that is key. The more and more we learn to trust ourselves, which kind of flips back to the beginning, not all the way to the beginning, but to the one of your 3 action items, which is really to step back and reflect. When you're quiet, like you said, that's where all the creativity comes in. When you've given your mind the time to rest, to sit back and say, okay, you'll be surprised, the ideas. I made it a point with my team that I kind of force it upon them. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but we take our Fridays really to reflect, to catch up on any administrative work. But I've made it a point for them, especially during the pandemic and even now as we keep on moving forward, it's time for them to reflect and to see where their creative juices will flow, to take it the opportunity to learn something for themselves, not always necessarily for the organization, but I do feel that if they learn something for themselves, it translates into something for the organization.
Absolutely.
So,
and write it down.
Yeah, that's it.
Write
Actually
it down.
have a pad. I learned that. Pad by my bed with a pen, because pad with no pen is nowhere, because as I'm falling asleep, there's things I need to jot down, and when I wake up, you'll be surprised at things that may hit you that I know if I do not write them down, the way the 60-year-old mind is working right now, you may tend to forget. So I do write it down to see how far do I want to go with it. Why did that enter while I was quieting myself down during the day or starting to power myself up? So
and I was just going to say, there's also in writing things down, there's also the universe then can work for you. Right, it can line things up. It can bring people into view, and you'll be more open to seeing that.
Yes,
So
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, so as I was saying before, we're going to move right into our Did You Know section. So this specific segment of the podcast talks about the various resources that are out there. And it could be community resources on the local level, it could be on the state level, or even on the federal level. So today I was talking with Lynette about a special project that I will create, and one day I will announce. It's just not ready for major announcement at this time. But in doing that, she mentioned something that she wants to talk about, and I said, you know what? I have something else to go along with it. So I will let you start, and we were talking about scholarships.
Yeah, so this year I launched a scholarship fund in honor of my brother. My brother, Thomas McDonough, had passed, unfortunately, too early in life. But he was an avid artist and an amazing artist. And I also, ironically, went to school. My undergrad was in art history. So I also just have a natural love for the arts. And I really wanted to create a scholarship fund for him. So I partnered with the Bold Foundation, and we launched our first scholarship this fall. And the scholarship, and it'll be awarded annually. We did already award our winner, which I'll mention in a moment here. But the goal of the scholarship is actually to support high school seniors or current college undergraduates that are studying the visual arts. And the hope is that they might, they can apply if they're first generation, and or if they are in financial need. But it really is to help offset some of the financial burdens of young students going into the field and really encourage them to continue with their education. So the Verve Arts Scholarship was launched. We awarded a $2,100 scholarship this this spring to Elena Elliott, who's attending the University of New Haven in the fall, and she's an amazing artist. We actually will be doing our first of many art shows this fall, and some of Elena's work will be there. So definitely follow me for that information on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter on that. But
what is your handle? Before you keep on going, what's your handle so they could follow you?
Sure. So on Facebook, it's Verve Early Childhood Consulting. Very easy. On Instagram, it's Verve_ECC. And then on LinkedIn, it's my name, Lynnae Lopez.
Lovely.
But Elena actually is going to be studying her very first year of college in Florence.
Oh, how wonderful.
I
Italy. Oh,
know.
wow.
I know.
You know how I got to Italy? Because my daughter studied abroad, and I said, well, now your mom has to go visit you.
There you go.
That's the only way I got on. And now it's like every year I got to find myself way back to Europe somehow, some way. That is amazing. That's wonderful.
So
what a gift. I'm sorry that your brother passed away, but what a wonderful gift in his honor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to jump off the scholarship area, some of you may know that I am the chair. My chairhood will be ending with the Eastern Monmouth Area Chamber of Commerce Educational Foundation, which you could find information regarding the scholarship on emacc.org. And I've been chairing this foundation for 4 years. And the purpose of our foundation is to provide non-traditional students with scholarships. And hopefully when this recording is going on, the scholarship is still open. But if not, every year we tend out to give several scholarships out. We have what's called a name scholarship. So if anyone is listening to this and you think you may want to provide a scholarship in someone's name, do reach out to us. And the information, you can find us again on emacc.org website. And the non-traditional student to us is someone who's either 25 or older, whether you're in school, returning back to school, or you're a junior going in, you're entering your junior year at a university, at a 4-year college, or you're a senior. On top of that, if you're in grad school, we know how expensive it is for you to continue your education. So it's an opportunity for us to give back to those that kind of don't have the same opportunities in receiving a scholarship. Along with that, we have a grant that runs all year long. And that grant is for if someone is interested in doing a vocational training or is looking to be certified in any aspect. What that particular grant does is that it provides you with half of the funding for the program that you're going into. So we max it out at $2,000, and we take everything into consideration. Your books, any additional fees, all that is wrapped up into the price. So as long as, it could be $4,000, we will cover too. We do believe that people should have skin in the game in order to motivate them to continue moving forward. And that grant is year long. It doesn't matter when you apply. The scholarship, however, for this year, the closing date is July 1st. But if you hear this a little later and you're like, oh, how can I take advantage of that? Make sure you follow emacc.org. You can find the Educational Foundation on Facebook, and on LinkedIn we have a page as well. So you can follow us through there to find out when the next opportunity it is. So it is coming up at this particular time as we are taping this podcast. When you hear it, it may have been a time of the past, but remember, the grant is available and you should definitely take advantage of it. All it takes is for you to complete a simple application, not difficult at all. Grant amount varies, as I said before, depending on what program you're going into, but the scholarship, I have to say, our scholarship, we have a regular scholarship, which is $2,100, and then we also have what we call a double scholarship, which actually is more than that. It's a $5,000 scholarship, and we give out one or two of them depending on how the funding is for that year. So it is an opportunity. We do receive funds from the Florence Forgotten Foundation. And for those of you who do not know who Florence Forgotten is, she was the first lawyer in Red Bank, which is right next door to where we are right now in Homedale. So it is an opportunity for those that are in school. It doesn't matter, who you are, as long as you live in Monmouth County. I have to tell you that. It's open only to those that live in Monmouth County. It doesn't matter what school you go to, as long as it's an accredited institution. So bear that in mind. The website you want to remember is emacc.org. Again, you could find that on the internet, obviously, and go under scholarship. And under scholarship, you'll find both applications are there, one for the scholarship as well as one for the grant. So you still have time. Like I said, for this year, our closing date is July 1st. And we present the awards, within 6 weeks after that, so it's not a long wait. Okay, so with that, I believe we're getting to a close here. I am so grateful once again,
Thank you for
Lynnae,
having
to
me.
see you. Thank you. Lynnae had mentioned that I assisted her with starting her business, right? That goes beyond that. For us, it's a matter of, I love following individuals that I closely assisted with, but whoever the center worked with at the particular time, I like watching to see what has the SBDC done for you. Look how critical we are to the community, and that is why it is one of my pleasures to be the regional director of the Small Business Development Center at Brookdale Community College. So with that, I wish everyone an amazing day. Keep on watching our podcast and getting more information and meeting such amazing people within our communities. They are giving back. They're innovative, they're smart, and most of all, they've reached a level of success that's perfect for them.
Yeah.
So, Lynnae, thank you so much for
Thank
being on our show today.
It's been great today. Thank you.
Thank you.